Hi, my name is Avi Federgreen, and welcome to Unleashed, a producer's guide to indie filmmaking. This is episode 9, and I cannot tell you how overjoyed I am to have a mentor, a friend, someone who I would call mishpucha on this show. The lovely, the talented, the passionate, the influential, the teacher, Jennifer Podemski. And for any of you out there that don't know who Jennifer is an acclaimed actress, has been an actress for so very many years, and an acclaimed producer, an acclaimed show creator, an acclaimed activist in the Indigenous world, but also in the Jewish world. I'm so grateful to have you on this episode, Jen, which I know number 9 is your favorite number, and this is episode 9. So welcome.
Thank you, Avi. Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so
Well, I
much.
speak nothing but truth, and that's what the point of this podcast is that we speak truth.
Okay.
And, um, I want to dig deep in this one, Jen. Like, this is about telling it like it really is, because I feel and I've always felt, being in this business for now over 30 years, and I know you've been in the business over 30 years as well, is that we sugarcoat everything, and we don't really tell it like it is, and we don't speak from the heart and about really what we go through and how difficult it is to make content in this country.
Mhm.
And I would say that it's become super hard for me, being a man, but also being Jewish has been a real struggle to get any funder to actually support me anymore. And it's been like that for about 5 years now or more. And I decided to start this podcast to basically give everybody an opportunity to speak truth about what we go through and how difficult it is, and where the issues are in our industry and so on and so forth. So I'm grateful to have you because you come from at various different angles of the industry. Um, I'd like to dig in from the early days about, obviously you've been an actress for so very many years, and that's how you got your beginnings in the industry. But at some point down the road, you decided you wanted to do more.
Mhm.
And where did that all come from, and what was the impetus for you getting started in show creation or producing? I mean, you and I worked together on your first feature as a producer called Empire of Dirt, which I'm so grateful to have been involved in with you and Peter and the rest of the gang. And actually, that was the beginnings of the wonderful actress who was the lead in the movie, whose name is
Yeah,
now,
Kara G.
yeah, Kara G. Where did all of the interest in being more than just an actress come from?
Well, that is a long story and a long time ago. But I will do my best to give you the Coles Notes version of that.
Yeah.
So yes, I did start acting when I think my first on-camera thing was for a TV show called Wonderstruck when I was in like grade 7. And that was it was a, g- a it was my first introduction to being on camera, and I actually hated it. It was so uncomfortable. I felt so insecure, and it was not something that made me feel like, oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. That was not it. So I had been pursuing a dance career for like all of elementary school, basically. Um, and in grade 8, I auditioned for Claude Watson Performing Arts School in Toronto. Did not get in as a dancer, but I auditioned again for grade 9 and I got in for grade 9. So I was in an environment with a lot of people in the performing arts. So I was in the dance as a dance major, I was a theater minor. So my whole world was people in the arts. Like all the kids on Degrassi went there, like lots of different actors. Like it was a school of literally people in the performing arts.
Right.
So I think that was a really informative time for me that made me realize like that you could have a career as an actor. And as I kind of started to get more into theater, I realized that I really did like it a lot, and it was a great outlet, and it was something that I really liked to do, but I was also very good at. Like I was getting good feedback
Right.
from the teachers and from students and whatever. And then I like got this. I lined up at school with a casting director who was casting background performers for a show called 9B.
Oh my
That's how
God.
long ago it was.
Oh my God.
And I got the role. Now, if like in terms of like spiritual interventions and divine intervention, I really believe that that was such a significant thing because I got to be like a regular student in a classroom, and the 9B was a show about a class,
Mm.
like a school
Yeah.
of a class. So I was one of the main extras in the classroom, and it starred Michelle St. John, who at the time I had her picture in my locker because she was like an Indigenous actress who
Right.
had been on Where the Spirit Lives, around that same time. And
Right.
she was like my idol.
Right.
So I had her picture in my locker, the newspaper article of her holding her Gemini Award
Hmm.
for Where the Spirit Lives. And so this show was in studio. So I would shoot and then, walk around the studio and like always walk by her dressing room just to see if maybe I could meet her. And that's kind of just that was the foundation for like me imagining that I could do this as a job for the rest of
Right.
my life kind of thing. So I pursued it, got an agent, um, got my first job on Conspiracy of Silence, which was my first kind of big job. I was 17. And it became very evident all of the auditions after that that I was limited to Indigenous roles,
Hmm.
right? I either didn't look native enough
Right.
and would lose roles to, Asian people all the time, and or I was too ethnic looking to be white and or to be like a main role in anything else.
Right.
So I was
Right.
really limited to
Right.
Indigenous roles.
Right.
And that's kind of what I did for the next coming years. And I would consider myself extremely lucky that I booked, a lead role in The Diviners, um, which happened after like 6 auditions. And that was when I had graduated high school already. I had pursued a career as an actor, auditioned so many times for The Diviners, didn't get it, finally didn't get it. And then I moved to Israel actually. And I
Right.
thought, I'm going to live in Israel for the rest of my life. I'm never going to be an actor. I'm just going to do something else because that's where my dad's from.
Right.
And I just thought that's the furthest place that I could go away from this stupid industry, this fucking terrible, stupid, racist industry. And
Yeah.
anyways, I was literally like cleaning the floor in the cafeteria in this kibbutz I was living in.
Right.
And someone ran in and was like, "Your agent's on the phone." And so I went to my room and picked up the phone or called whatever. The phone was waiting
Right.
for me.
Right.
And she was like, they need you in Winnipeg to fly to Winnipeg tomorrow for the Diviners.
Wow.
So I look back at that now and think like, yes, in this business, especially as actors, but also as producers and directors, you are like on the verge of quitting always,
Yeah.
and on the verge of like also doing anything under the sun to get a job.
Yeah.
Like it's just such a mind fuck.
Yeah.
So I made the choice at that time. I was 18. It was like the day before my 19th birthday,
Right.
and like partied so hard that night with all my friends, stayed up all night, flew to Winnipeg the next day, so hungover. Like it was like so insane. Anyways, landed in Winnipeg and then was suddenly doing the movie The Diviners for like
Wow.
whatever, a month or 6 weeks. And then my life kind of changed from there. And then I was back in Canada and working as an actor did the diviners, did some things between, but like essentially a starving artist, like not able to pay the bills, living
Right.
on my own, but like really struggling and only being seen for native stuff. It was just really hard, like anybody else. But I also booked Dance Me Outside, which was great. And then there's a lot of celebrity attached to that. And I started to think about, the disproportionate representation
Mm-hmm.
of Indigenous people, like
Mm-hmm.
behind the scenes. And I was like, why are all these non-native people doing all this native stuff? And at the time, I recognized like there weren't enough Indigenous people in the industry
Right.
to do the roles, right?
Right.
Be behind the camera, writer, producer, director.
Yeah.
So it was ended up being a great inspiration for me to like work with like Bruce McDonald and Norman Jewison and Brian Dennis and people who were actually very good people who who um, made things in a way that sort of set the bar for me.
Right.
Like really good people doing good projects in a good way.
Right.
And I didn't recognize at the time like how rare that was, how special that was. I just thought the industry was like that.
Yeah.
Right. That,
Yeah.
this is great. These are this industry of good people, indie filmmakers, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Anyways, that was sort of like how I got really into the business, like professionally, and started to become very aware of the disproportionate representation from Dance Me Outside and then other roles that I came very close to getting, but losing to like people who looked more native than me that were not even native.
Yeah.
One of them being like Legends from the Fall. I was like up for that role of the wife of Brad Pitt's wife, but it went to Katrina
Which is
Lombard,
crazy.
who was like not even native. Anyways, and then the res, and life
Yeah.
goes on. And then I got to do a lot of other really cool things, but unfortunately, it just wasn't sustainable
Yeah.
to be an actor.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a life that I could like, it wasn't something I could make a life of. Like I had a lot of celebrity, um, just because I was, there were very few Indigenous people working, in the women in the
Yeah.
industry, but very little work and very little like sense of a future.
Right.
And it was, although there were super fun things that happened and people that I met and, opportunities that I was able to I guess, to participate in. But at the end of the day, I was still super broke and very unhappy, borderline depressed about the state of the industry. I was traveling a lot as I was being invited a lot to communities across Canada and the States, teaching workshops on like how to get involved in the film industry. And, this is in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I just saw such a disconnect.
Yeah.
And it was very depressing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't imagine a way around that. Like, how
Right.
does little old me like mobilize the industry to shift how it, represents Indigenous people and stories and all of
Right.
that stuff. So I was kind of like moving towards the end of my career by
Right.
that point. I was like maybe
For the
23.
15th time.
Yeah. So this is it. Finally, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm done. I hate this career. This
Yeah.
is the worst choice I ever made in my life. And
Yeah.
I was like around 23. And it's just so, okay, I know I said the Coles Notes, but it's like such a long version to get to this point. So then my sister Tamara booked Rent on Broadway.
Yep.
So I was around, let's say 24 about that time. And I had already been like, this is it. I was in a play in Toronto called Red River, I think, for Crow's Theatre, another great company.
Mm-hmm.
I was out doing this play, and I told my sister, when this play is done, I'm going to move to New York. Can
Mm-hmm.
I stay with you? So I did the play. She let me stay on her couch with her husband at the time. So I was like living with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I just started from the bottom. I just was
Right.
like, I'm done. I don't know what to do, but New York is kind of where I'm going to find myself. So I started to think about like my future, and I started to imagine like how do you get to the point where you're a producer, where you're making decisions,
Right.
where you're like where you can actually change the system.
Yeah.
How do you get to that point? And like, what is my purpose? And like really asking questions, not realizing that at the time, um, I was manifesting. And I was manifesting so hard, and it's New York. And this
Right.
is why I love New York so much, because it is so I think it's a vortex. I'm pretty sure it's a vortex
Right.
where there's like it's an energetic vortex. And, asking all these questions, super broke, like living on my sister's couch and just wondering what the hell I'm doing with my life. And then a few things kind of happened in consecutive order. One, I got that Backstage magazine looking for auditions. There's this magazine in New York.
Yeah.
And I was just like reading it, and I saw a literal full page. It's a big newspaper picture of me, if you can believe it.
Wow.
And it was some reporter from Backstage saw my play in Toronto, and they wrote this beautiful review of my
Mhm.
performance. And I was like, oh my gosh, so I'm supposed to be, because that
Right.
was my question, is am I
Right.
supposed to be in this business?
Right. Right.
So that was my answer. Yes, you're supposed to be in this business. Okay, well, I have that answer. Now it's like, what do I do next? How do I get to that point? And then the
Mhm.
things started rolling in. Sarah Pauly called me. Will you be in my first short film? Yes. So I went back to Toronto, did her short film, and then I was asked to come back for the National Aboriginal Achievement Awards, which I was hosting with Michael Grey Eyes, and that happened. And that's where I met Laura Milliken, who was
Mhm.
like a fledgling new producer who was talking about like, let's produce something together, or let's
Right.
like, I told her I want to be a producer, I want to
Right.
do things that are important. And then I got this crazy call to take the role of a white character on Riverdale, the
Right.
CBC soap opera Riverdale, who's waking up from a coma. And I just thought that was so super cool. If I'm asking to like shift, you know, to create opportunities and to shift racialized thinking and
Right.
access to parts and whatever, how can I not take a role that was a white person who went
Right.
into a coma and woke up as me? So I took the job,
Yeah.
and that's where I met Melissa DeMarco, who had
Right.
her own show. And
Yeah.
on lunch breaks, I would take all the notes. I took all
Right.
the notes of how to make your own show.
Right.
And then I met with Laura, and we started to like really brainstorm of how to start a production company. And that's when we started Big Soul Productions. So I
Yeah.
was like just turned 25.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had a whole fresh outlook on the future. And I was
Right.
like, being I'm done being at the bottom
Right.
of this crappy industry.
Mhm.
I want a way out of this feeling. And
Right.
my way out was to create content and to
Right.
produce, and that
Right.
that whole thing. So that's when I started. That's really the whole kind of story in a nutshell.
And I mean, I think early on when you did that, you and I started working together because, first of all, we produced Tamara's music video, Miigwech, right?
Yep.
That Bruce McDonald directed.
Yep.
Then we ended up doing, which I think was your first show as a producer,
Yep.
Rabbit Fall, which we
Well,
did
no,
at
it was my second, because
second.
Rapid Fall came after Moccasin Flats,
Right,
and
that's true. Right,
that's
yeah,
when those
yeah,
producers came to me and said,
yeah,
can we do something similar with the budget and whatever?
right,
So I brought them my budget.
right,
We built, and then because I knew you, and I was like,
yeah,
I don't know these people. I
yeah,
know Avi. Let's bring
yeah,
Avi on
yeah,
board and have someone who actually knows how to do this work, like make this show with us. So
yeah,
technically, now I know that that was my first, my second
hmm,
show running job,
hmm,
but I did not own that show
right,
when I
right.
probably should have.
You should have for sure.
And
Yeah,
there's a whole trajectory of things that I didn't know at the time.
yeah,
I didn't know how like companies get ahead.
yeah,
And it took me many, many years and many mistakes to learn how to
right,
do that. So I still
right,
feel like I'm so far behind because a lot of people brought me on board, but
No,
there was no
didn't give you
equity.
ownership.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well,
But
I
that was a
mean,
great experience, it was a great experience. I still have such fond memories. I found all that video from swimming. You're in it, the swimming pool in Bob's backyard. I just found all those videos.
that was an
Such good
amazing
memories.
time, late 90s, right? And working with a great people like
No,
Stebbings and Menard and all
that was
those
in
people. Was
2007.
it? Sorry,
Yes.
2007. You're right. 2007, 2008. Right. And summertime in Duck Lake,
Yeah.
Saskatchewan. And then shortly thereafter, Empire of Dirt happened,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was a great feature that Peter Stebbings directed. Kara G was in it, played Tiff.
Yeah. It did
Um,
really well.
yeah. And so, but since then, your trajectory as a producer and show creator has won you numerous awards. You were recognized by the Academy for all the work that you do with the industry, but also the Indigenous community. And you're still creating successful shows that are winning awards, and still doing acting and all these other things years and years later, even though you've tried to quit numerous times.
I quit yesterday.
Oh,
I'm back today.
oh, great. What do you like? I'm super frustrated. I've produced over 80 films. Nobody has made as many films in this country as me. And I can't get
Unbelievable.
anything funded unless it's private money anymore. Um, the system is clearly broken, has been broken for at least 10, 15 years, maybe longer. Um, the stuff that we're making is not commercial, which I find really ridiculous, to be honest. And, you know, it took a lot of effort from people like you and many other people to help create the Indigenous Screen Office, the part of telefilm that recognizes Indigenous content, but it's treated as separate type of content than regular content, and it's crazy because content is content. Doesn't matter who's creating it.
Yeah.
It needs to be. You're putting everybody in a category that it should just be one big category,
Yeah.
right? I've been told that I'm not allowed to produce Indigenous content in this country. I was told this by many people when I wanted to produce Indigenous content. Sorry, you're not Indigenous. You can't produce it. But why? I love Indigenous content. I want to help emerging Indigenous filmmakers make their films or TV shows or whatever, but I'm not allowed to be a producer on it or
I don't think
whatever.
that's true.
No,
I
it
don't think
is. I
that's
was told
true.
that
There's
directly.
lots of non-Indigenous people who produce with
I
as
know,
long
but
as there's a writer
this is
director.
in their first creation of the Indigenous
Oh,
Screen Office or whatever. Jesse Wente basically told me, no, you can't. It has to be produced by an Indigenous person. You can't be involved. La 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 la. Now, we just finished shooting an Indigenous science fiction film in Alberta that I'm the co-producer on. But I mean, it's
wow.
taken me years to be able to attach myself to content of indigenous from that point of view. And it's my goal as a distributor also is to distribute indigenous content but not aim it at an indigenous audience, but and aim it at a general audience,
Mhm.
right? Because the storytelling is there's no difference.
Mhm.
It's a story that's being told. A lot of the indigenous stories that are being told aren't necessarily just about being indigenous or whatever. I'm super frustrated by that. I'm also frustrated by the fact that I'm Jewish, and my God, like telling Jewish stories. How dare I?
Mhm.
I've had great scripts about Jewish people or whatever that I've pitched. Nobody cares.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's super offensive to me. Um, and I know that you've been, actively, outspoken about both of these situations, and I feel we're going backwards. We're not going forwards.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a reflection of, I guess, society where like I was talking about this yesterday where I just feel like people generally seem like they would prefer to be divided
Yeah,
than, build bridges of understanding or compassion
yeah,
or coexistence with whoever. It's like I feel in many ways we're going to have to move very far in the direction of like collapse in terms of social media or uh humanity
yeah,
in order to pick ourselves back up, because I feel like we live in a very strange time where like someone like me, for example, who has has had a platform and been outspoken about, or not outspoken, just existing as who I am. And for years and years, like I never hid my Jewish
no,
identity.
no,
But suddenly, as a Jewish person with an Israeli father, regardless like of what I have to say, I automatically just get hate, in my feed and in my private messages, and I'm just so confused.
yeah, yeah,
Like I'm confused at the sudden response to like me as a person
yeah,
outside of any sort of opinion that I have. And that is really concerning. So it generally is a very weird time. And I don't know that it's ever not been a weird time, like for me, I feel like there's always been, ultimately it, our business is a business of audiences, right?
yeah, totally.
And audiences determine how big or small your project is going to be.
Yeah,
And audiences, in my lifetime anyway, in this career, have been extremely, uh let's say,
don't hold back.
reluctant or extremely biased when it comes to
Yeah,
watching anything with Native people in it.
yeah, totally.
Right? It's been
Yeah,
very difficult for people to, like what you were saying about, being able to tell stories that are global. Like, yes, that does happen, but it's not, I mean, people just don't think about it. Like,
yeah,
Native people and stories are not even in the conversation.
no,
Like
you're
maybe
right.
for us in the industry, like we're
Yeah,
aware of it because we hear about it and we know about the funding and whatever.
yeah,
But before that, like when I did Little Bird, even
mm,
people in my own family were like, they never even thought about Native people, even though I'm their relative.
yeah, wow.
Right. And it's like really weird. And I feel like the same thing is happening now as a Jewish person,
Yeah,
that people don't think about Jewish people. Like
no,
they didn't
no,
until there's something to, until it's like they feel like there's a conversation that is contentious, and
yes,
can be, can be a point like that they can have a discussion that is divisive and angry. But nobody thought about it before that point.
right.
The majority of people, maybe because of the distance I have traveled in Canada
Yeah,
to like the farthest reaches, of small communities to remote communities to small towns, like
yeah,
I've always felt like, oh, okay, this is a scenario where nobody has ever met or ever thought about a native person.
Yeah.
And I often find that those are also scenarios where people have never met or never thought about a Jewish person. Because that's just my viewpoint. That's
Yeah.
just how I come in, like that's who I am in a
Yeah.
situation. So the fact that now people talk about those things are and talk about them in a way that is just to argue about things.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. It's weird.
And
It's
how do
hard.
you feel that the industry, the decision makers, right, that we all deal with, are handling Indigenous content now as opposed to 10 years ago? I mean, I find that it's the same broadcasters that are, you know, the APTNs of the world and CBC that are generally focused or are generally willing and interested in programming Indigenous content, whereas all the other broadcasters and big streamers are not.
Yeah, I think it's like, a show like North of North is a good example,
Yeah,
where it hit a chord
yeah,
on a global level,
yeah,
for whatever reason.
yeah,
And, aside from the fact that it's a great show, so
yeah,
funny, so relatable.
yeah,
Um, but so I think it's changed. I think the climate has changed,
right,
because it sort of made space for a show like that to be created and um, to be so widely celebrated.
yeah,
So that's hopeful.
yeah,
But at the same time, I think that people just don't. I have a not-for-profit also that kind of I started in 2025 specifically to address the disproportionate numbers of Indigenous women specifically in the
mhm,
industry, in the sector, because, if you look at the numbers, it's like less than 1% of us who are able to make a career of this.
right,
But it's the findings are are that, yes, systemically the real issues are at the executive level, right?
right.
Like if we're not in the decision making positions.
Hmm.
Oh, I froze.
No,
Oops.
you're there.
If we're not in the decision making positions,
Yeah,
then that gets reflected. It's like a trickle down effect, and that gets reflected on the screen or in the
right.
content. But it's also in the hiring. Like right now we've applied for a very large project, which if we were to receive it would be a significant needle move, like
Yeah,
in the right direction, which would be to address hiring practices at the
right,
big, networks.
right.
Um, because, it's like people don't really have a framework to connect to Indigenous people or
Right,
communities, and hiring practices that support that.
right.
I mean, it's just like where women were
Yeah,
25 years ago or 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
Same kind of thing. So yeah, I think ultimately we, you're a very good example of someone who, like, you're not just a producer, you're an entrepreneur. You're someone who like came into this world and was like, if it's not there, I'm gonna build it. That's the kind of person you are. And I think a lot of producers have that mentality. I would put myself in that category. It's like, I'm not just a producer. I probably have 15 jobs or titles like you
Right.
do, right?
Yeah,
And like the fact that you can make so many films and direct and produce and write and all the things you're doing in the distribution. I mean, that's how you survive, right?
barely.
It's like it is, and it is. It's oftentimes, most of those times, barely,
Yeah,
but it's a philosophy,
yeah.
and you're probably never going to fit in,
No,
right? And that's also probably not the goal. It's trying to carve
no.
out something that makes sense for you in an industry that doesn't, in a space that doesn't make sense.
Listen, and my philosophy has always been you make your own opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be one step ahead of everybody else because the industry changes like I change my socks, and you have to be ahead of the curve. And I became a distributor because I was tired of giving my films to people that didn't give a shit about me or my films. And Empire Dirt is a perfect example that we gave it to an international sales agent that didn't give a shit about us, didn't give a shit about the film, made a bunch of money, refused to pay us, and shit the bed.
Hmm.
And it happened over and over and over again with me. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to start my own distribution company and then eventually a sales company. And, that's the direction I'm going to go.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, I just felt like, and couldn't get funding from Telefilm or anybody anymore, it seems. So I had to go and find ways of making movies for virtually nothing. I mean, I used to make 6 million. I made co-produced a movie that opened TIFF. The budget was $6 million. I haven't come close to making a film over $1 million in at least 10 years. I can't get the money.
Yeah.
And it's super frustrating. And I want to help as many as this about me, that I want to help as many people as I can. And I mentor more films than you can possibly imagine for no money. Like I don't take a fee. But I feel like if I don't help the filmmakers of tomorrow, there will be no tomorrow.
Hmm.
So and my legacy is my films and my children, right? Like
Hmm.
that's what I will be remembered for. So I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
Um, and if you called me tomorrow and said, Avi, I need your help, I'd drop everything to go and do it because that's what I do. Um, but the industry is I think is going backwards. It's not going forwards. I really believe that. I think that the content that we're making, with the exception of a few shows, is really like, for example, in this country, we don't do anthology. Like, why the fuck do we not do anthology? We're always doing procedural. Like, enough is enough. Like, let's look at the successful shows out there, and they're all anthology. But the broadcaster doesn't want to be a participant in that in this country. The feature films that we're making are feature films that are not getting worldwide distribution. Why is that? Because they're not commercially driven films.
Hmm.
The same people are getting money over and over again, where there's great talent coming up through the earth of amazing new talent that aren't given the opportunity to make a film.
Hmm.
Um, it's broken. It's broken. And there's not enough people out there like you and me standing up on our tippy toes, speaking truth to power about what needs to happen.
Hmm.
And, you know, I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall all the time. And unless I get to talk to people like you who are of similar mindset about what's going on, and yet many others feel the same way, but are too scared to say anything because then they're never going to be funded again or whatever the case may be. And
Hmm.
I say, you know, go for it. Like, drop your guard. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
talk about it, right? Because if we don't, there will be no change. And we, as creators of content, can affect change.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's less of like I was doing an interview the other day and was reminded of how true this is, that if you imagine lightning,
Yeah,
lightning comes from the sky, but it also comes from the ground.
yeah,
So it's top down and it's also bottom up,
yeah,
which I think is what has to happen in the
yeah.
industry. Like there
That's a
are
good way of
certain
looking at it.
things that are extremely harmful
Yeah,
to human beings in this
yeah,
business.
yeah.
And that happens at our level, at the producing level.
Right,
Long
right.
days, people don't get to see their families. You
Yeah,
can barely, make a buck. There's certain, regulations you have to follow within unions. And I think if I was to say anything, then the truth is that unions have to work with producers in a way that more effectively addresses the harmful uh impact of the way of the workforce on
yeah,
on the workforce,
Yeah.
And if the workforce is suffering, then the content is going to suffer. So at some point, there has to be like a synergy between those two, the bottom up and the top down thing where the lightning touches and the
Mhm.
real change happens. And I think it is like a collective, like mobilizing effort. Like we all have to do it together, and you can't do it without the other people, without the other
Yeah.
forces.
I mean, I
Right.
can tell you as a union member, DGC, for example, and a member of the CMPA or whatever, is that I do everything in my power to not go union other than in acting because it's a hindrance. The cost factor is so great that it infringes on your ability to make a good show because you're having to adhere to rates and other things that just don't allow you to be as creative as you possibly can be. And so most of the stuff that I go is non-union except for cast.
Yeah.
And it's a much better environment, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, that's the thing is shouldn't the unions be there to support like better environments,
Yeah,
right? Like if you want
yeah,
to do 10-hour days
yeah,
and achieve the kinds of things that have to be achieved and do like French
mm,
hours or whatever it
yeah,
is, whatever
yeah,
you have to do to treat people well and get the
yeah,
project made,
yeah.
there should be no barriers to that.
No, I agree. I agree. So, I mean, you've spent a lot of time in the last 10 years or so focusing mostly on TV
Yeah.
and not film, which makes me sad because I think Empire Dirt, which was your first one, was absolutely fantastic. And it was a harmonious group of people that gave of themselves to make such a great and emotionally driven movie. And I don't know how many times I've begged you to say, Jen, let's fucking make another project together. I mean, I'd make a series with you in a heartbeat, but you know, I know your heart is in television. I totally know that. I know
It's
you
not necessarily. It's really not. It's my heart is in telling stories and
stories, right?
working with good people. The thing
Yeah,
is that Empire of Dirt broke me.
yeah,
And I don't know that it was why I ended up getting so sick after. Like I
yeah,
I am still kind of suffering from whatever that was, Lyme disease and like the that whole thing, but like
yeah,
it all happened after Empire of Dirt. But
yeah,
that film broke me. Like
yeah,
the whole process of making it. It was such a good like time
yeah,
through production,
right.
but it was so hard. And
Yep. Well, I mean, there was a
you
lot of
know,
factors that got into
a
the
lot of
making of that
factors.
film, and I
And then
think that if given the opportunity to do it all over again, things would be different for sure.
yeah,
But what I find is that it would be great to see you get back on the saddle again, so to speak, to make another film
yeah.
because your storytelling, Jen, is some of the best I've ever seen out of somebody. And I mean that sincerely. And that comes from not just you, but your entire family, Sarah and Tamara, and their storytelling. And, there's great stories to be told in the feature world that I mean, a lot of the stories that are being told in the Indigenous world in feature film, I think revolve around the same kind of storytelling as growing up on a res and going the troubles that go on the res. But I think there's a lot of success stories out of the Indigenous community that could be told that aren't being told, and that it is not all doom and gloom, and not the community is not enveloped in substance abuse and all that other stuff, but there's really great storytelling that is happening in the real world out of the Indigenous community,
Oh yeah.
that isn't being told, and I am godsmacked that it's not being told, and I would love to find a way to um, help tell those stories.
Mm.
I'm actually in the process of, I've got three labels now as far as distribution. I have IndieCan, which is, drama, comedy, documentary. I have Pride Pictures, which is LGBTQ, and I have Redwater, which is genre. But my intent is to do another label, which is focused on Indigenous content.
Oh, wow.
Because I think there's nobody really in Canada that is spending any amounts of time getting involved at the distribution level in Indigenous
Hmm.
content.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a big necessity, to be honest. So that is something that I'm, been in the last couple months trying to come up with a name and all that stuff and start, because I've acquired some, I've worked with numerous Indigenous filmmakers. I've released a number of Indigenous films, and will continue to do so from not only from Canada but from around the world. And I need to bring attention to it,
Yeah.
right? So, but I do hope that you decide at some point to get back in the feature game, and I would like to be the first one in line to help you to do that. Where do you see things as we're coming close to near the end? Where do you see things going now? Like where we are now, where are we going to be 10 years from now as far as Indigenous content and the growth of Indigenous filmmakers and actresses and actors and cinematographers and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I really don't know. What I hope to see are, I mean, this is just my opinion, but I would very much like to see more producers, more
Yeah,
Indigenous producers and production company owners who have a valuable stake in the projects that they're making.
right,
Um, that's the that's one of the hardest things that I find for myself is keeping a production company alive for this long.
right.
Like I parted ways with my original production company, but that would be coming up on my maybe 25th anniversary or maybe more.
Wow,
Um, so my current company, oh my gosh, 2020 or 2005,
wow.
I opened
So
it.
20 years,
So yeah,
21 years now,
21
almost.
years for
Yeah.
so yeah, 30 years it would have been for my other company.
Red
So
Cloud Studios,
Red
right?
Cloud Studios
Yeah,
is my production company that, uh it's been extremely hard to keep it open and keep the lights on and keep it, developing content and have a
right,
slate. So that's what I hope
right,
is that there are other companies that emerge and are sustainable to move in whatever direction is needed,
right. But
whether it's
what's happening at the
verticals or
grassroots with young Indigenous
yeah, there's
people?
lots of great stuff happening. I mean, there's so much happening with content creation and, brilliant voices. Like I just read 23 projects that came through a mentorship we're doing at the Shine Network,
Mhm.
and all of them were amazing. Like some people weren't ready to necessarily be showrunners, but
Right,
there were ideas there that were like amazing ideas.
right.
And I just think, yeah,
Are we
uh,
seeing many Indigenous people going to film school and things like that?
yeah, there's definitely, I mean, I work with a few that are, either graduates of film school or in film school. Like I
Right,
think those numbers are definitely rising.
great.
However, I think that, what a lot of people don't know, I think there's a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to running a production company.
Oh, huge.
And I think that that's a direction, and you don't learn that in film school.
No.
This is about being an entrepreneur, it's about opening a business, and it's about like, building something from nothing,
Mhm.
and about, working with scraps, and how it is. It's
Yeah,
just and no one in film school is going to teach you that. So I do want to put focus on, even if you're a creative, that if you have the capacity to also run a company, and to also, take a corporate overhead fee or a producer fee or
Right.
whatever, like to do it. And I want to help people do that because that's where you can work with creative people. That's where you can produce movies, and that's where you can, ultimately write movies, and you can do whatever you want. It's just about positioning yourself in a leadership position. So
There's no
yes, there
film
are a
school
lot
though.
of creatives, but there's
Yeah.
not a lot of leaders.
There's no film school out there that teaches people how to be a producer. Like
Mm-mm.
people come out of film school and I meet with them all the time and they have no idea what being a producer is, what it entails, how you develop a project, all that
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, I've been teaching my own indie filmmaking
Yeah.
course for years now, and people, come to me years later and go, I took your course 5 years ago or whatever, and I took 30 pages of notes about all the things that I need to know about being a producer that I had never heard of before. And I'm shocked that none of the film schools have decided to build a program completely around how to be a producer.
Yeah.
And you basically being a producer means you start from square one, and it's self-taught
Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
which is crazy in my opinion.
I mean, that's what it is. It's a creative entrepreneurial position.
Yeah,
And it grows as fast as your ability to grow is. Like
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
you're it,
yeah, yeah.
So I would love to see more leaders in that
Mhm.
in that sense, because that's really where the big fight is
But
for
in
the
order to be
for
a
the
leader,
voice.
you have to have been in the business doing that kind of work for a while, and there's not a ton of people out there that have been doing it for a significant amount of time, like you, for
Yeah.
example,
So
and a
you
few other
start now.
people.
You start
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
like if for me in the first 5 years, like it's a different climate now,
yeah,
but I do think that there are things that are similar
yeah.
to right now. The climate is more similar to when I started than it has been since I started,
Right.
which is when I started Big Soul Productions. The reason we were able to even make content was
Yeah.
because it was 1999 and everything moved from analog to
Right.
digital.
Right.
And people in the analog world were saying, this is never going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
you're never going to,
Yeah.
no one's ever going to make movies on
No.
a digital camera.
No. No.
We made Moccasin Flats. We made all our shows on a consumer level digital
Yeah.
handheld camera.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it wasn't like the best quality in the world, but
No.
that was the content we were making.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to do it. And today where we're at is like everyone's talking about verticals, everyone's talking about cell phones, everyone's talking about like shooting it on,
Yeah.
shoot it on your phone, shoot it on your do it with
Yeah.
AI. Whatever it is, it's a new world, and this
Mhm.
is the time to get on board and to build something that's never been done before.
I'm sorry, I can't get behind vertical. I can't.
It's not for you to get behind. It's not for me to get behind. It's for
It's
whoever
like,
is
oh
new,
my God.
whoever's
Oh,
building their company now. That's for them to get behind,
right.
because that was just it's the me from 25 years ago,
Right.
where people were literally saying
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not a real filmmaker if you do that.
No. No.
So
So tell me, before we close, what is it that you're working on? You got anything happening that's, moving forward, that's coming out, anything like that?
yeah, so I have a comedy series with Crave that
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I've been writing for 4 years. I've been in
Wow.
development with for 4 years. That was um, greenlit in October, and
Nice.
really hoping to start the writers' room in a couple weeks. So that's been, front and center. Um,
It's
I
not
do
called Honeyland, is it?
no, I wish. I wish. Actually, we are talking about that as a vertical, possibly, because
Oh,
we've tried that
I
show.
know. I love that show though.
It really is so good. It's such a great
Yeah.
result. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And then I'm working on my own feature doc. like by
Oh,
myself. It's my own little thing, but
uh,
it really is a very Jewish story about
nice.
my grandfather's experience in.
I'm so happy to hear that. That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so raising money for that, which we'll see how easy that is. But bracing myself for the backlash and the hate. Just I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to tell a story at a time when I do literally feel like people are, you know, this is what they were warning us about, that this is the apathy and
yeah,
the vibe of
right,
like pre-Holocaust, not to say that that's what we're being set up for,
right,
but that's what my grandfather was warning us about.
right.
So that, and yeah, different projects in development, but
Yeah,
yes, it's a grueling and slow, very slow process.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well, no, I'm
it's
I'm
it's a
glad to hear that you've got some things going, and
yeah.
that's awesome. And I look forward to hearing more about these things as time goes on. And of course, I'm always here to support you and help you any way that I can. And I'm super grateful that you took the time out of your busy day to talk to me on this podcast. And
Anytime.
I'm a big fan, as you know.
When Avi calls, I answer.
I appreciate that. And thanks to everybody for listening to episode 9 of Unleashed, a producer's guide to indie filmmaking. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.